Hello, everybody. Today I have quite a different and interesting episode. Today I talked with Dr. Cam Brownley, a fellow chiropractor, and we talked about anatomy. My work as an anatomist, integral anatomy specifically, although we kind of compared and contrasted it with regional anatomy. And we also talked about a seminar that I'm developing a one-day version of, and him and I together are developing a two-day version of. The two-day version of it we're calling integral adjusting. It's basically going to be my one-day version of anatomy work, and then the adjusting portion is going to be the second day that he's going to kind of be taking the lead on, applying what we learned in the anatomy work into chiropractic adjusting, chiropractic body work. So yeah, it's also different because it's the first one, maybe the only one, although never say never, but the first one that I'm doing virtually. And I always feel like doing it in person is really important, but him and I have spent so much time together in person. We know each other so well, and we've done a lot of work on this project together already. So, and he's in North Carolina, I'm here, and we wanted to go ahead and put this episode out. So we figured that it would be okay to go ahead and do a virtual version. And yeah, obviously another difference is that it's not about the healing arts per se. It's kind of about the healing arts in sort of like a sideways way. It's like what my work as an anatomist is helpful to do healing work. So it's closely related enough, and it's a huge part of my life. And so I'm actually quite excited to share this with you guys. If any of you are interested in this side of my professional life, I think you'll get a lot out of it, and it's going to be interesting. And maybe you can even check out a date of one of these seminars, either the one day or the 2-day version. So anyway, come along for the ride. Thank you very much.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
So excited to talk to you about our vision of integral anatomy on your end and how that is translating into integral adjusting and this whole world that we're embarking on. And it's just so exciting. And I'm just grateful to be working with you on this vision and bringing the things we've learned, bringing your expertise in the lab to the table for young chiropractors and other body workers and everybody who wants to develop a more holistic and deeper understanding of, these temples that we got, these bodies, these amazing things. And I know your story. I was kind of tracking alongside you in chiropractic school when you were developing your passion for anatomy. And I would just love it if you could tell us about, that journey. How'd you get excited about anatomy? What was that look like? Where did this passion come from?
Yeah, yeah. So it's really it started with a cousin of mine who's a naturopathic doctor. And whenever I told him that I wanted to be a chiropractor, he was like, "Oh, this is what you want to do, huh? You need to learn your anatomy real well because that's what you interact with as a body worker." And obviously, and and so he said, really the best way to learn it is if you teach it. So he said his suggestion was while you're in school, this is him telling me, he said, while you're in school, you got to be an anatomy tutor. I think that's what he did. And it really worked out well for him. He learned his anatomy real well by tutoring. And so he was like, if you do this thing, it will really work well for you. I was like, all right, it makes sense. I get paid to learn, basically,
Right.
you know? Um, and so I took him up on that suggestion. And not only did it work, I really did learn my anatomy well, but I also discovered that I kind of really enjoy teaching, which I did not expect at all,
Right.
because I'm kind of like introverted by nature. But the teaching kind of brought it out of me. The teaching opened up my bubble a little bit, and and then that also brought me into the laboratory. that passion for it, because as I was teaching it, I had gotten more and more excited. The more you learn, the more you learn. And I was like, oh well, there's more to learn. And so that kind of brought me into the anatomy lab, and it just kind of snowballed into where it is today. Yeah.
I remember those Warrior Wednesdays that we used to have, and we lived together for a little bit, and we would go to classes, do our classes, work out in the middle of the day, do our clubs after school, back to back, 5 to 7, then 7:30 to 9:30. Then we go back to your house, and I think some nights you still even pulled up on the big screen and we're watching videos of Gil Headley showing anatomy. You were just
Probably.
so into it, you know?
Yeah,
It's
those
like,
Wednesdays were crazy, especially on the Wednesdays that we had 7 a.m. classes, because some quarters it was like that. And then
mhm,
Love Club wouldn't end until 9:30.
right.
So it was 7 to 9:30 Wednesdays, just like brutal, but it was good for us, I think.
It's like you would think Madhav would go home after like a long day of studying and learning all this anatomy and chiropractic, and it's like, oh, he's like doing it in his extracurricular time too. He's pulling it up, the Gil Headley videos, which are
Just
fantastic,
obsessed.
the YouTube series.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
So kind of talking about Gil and the lab and this whole integral anatomy perspective, what I guess we could start like what does integral mean to you? Like what is that word and why is it an important descriptor for those of us that might not know about this world of holistic dissection?
Totally. Yeah. So Gil Headley is the one who coined this term, integral anatomy, as opposed to regional anatomy, even though it's not exactly an opposition, but kind of it is. It's like I think of it as two sides of the same coin. It's like you have a tails and you have a heads, but they're both part of the same coin, but there is a difference between the tail and the heads, right? And so he used the word integral. Well, I'll just define it for you. Integral is meaning like a whole, like a unit, as opposed to regional, which is this part compared to this part next to this part next to this part. Integral is meaning like the thing in the whole. Another analogy that really works well, I think, is the forest and the trees. You can study one particular tree, and then you can study the tree right next to it, but then also you can study the forest, and you can study the forest as a whole unit, as a whole organism that's connected. So integral anatomy is really emphasizing unity. It's emphasizing connection. It's emphasizing relationship, how this is related to this other thing. Sometimes the relationships are very tight in the body. Sometimes the relationships are very loose in the body. Sometimes they're in between. There's all kinds of different relationships. And so, what is the texture of the relationship? What's the quality of the relationship? I don't really hear about that so much in the regional thought frame. You know, maybe like adhesion and breaking adhesion. That might be the most that we heard about it. But even what is that adhesion like relationship as compared to what would it normally feel like? And I don't know. There's just a lot of spaces that can be filled in with an integral perspective. So, but all of that to say, I want to also emphasize in the same breath um, that there's not a problem by learning regional anatomy. Actually, learning regional anatomy is super helpful. Like
Mhm.
imagine studying the forest and never studying a tree.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make sense either, right? You really want to do both, but it works in the opposite direction, and that's kind of what Gill's point is that if you study the trees and never study the forest,
Right.
well, then that's what, right? So you really want to be doing both. You want to be studying both sides of the coin.
It makes me
Um,
think of the difference between like, we have like some chiropractors in our field, which there's nothing wrong with this, but they're very, very um, focused and attached like on their technique, and it's like very left brain, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this and this and this, and it's like it's very linear, it's very predictable, it's very logical, it's very like cut and parsed out. And then you have the other airy fairy chiropractors that are, kind of doing whatever, and it's all about the feeling and it's all about the right brain. And it's like neither of those are wrong, but I think, you know, having the technique and then also having the art and being able to meld the two together is really essential. And what it sounds like you're saying is looking at the anatomy textbooks, looking at the regional anatomy, studying it, the pieces individually, and appreciating that wholeness of the integral anatomy perspective.
Yeah, how it's all
Um,
connected.
it's all connected. And it's going
Yeah.
to enable us to have a greater appreciation of what it is we're actually working with, as opposed to being attached to just looking at it through one lens.
I agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree. It gives you a different perspective on what it is that you're doing, what it is you're interacting with, and yeah, for me, it's been a huge game changer. And maybe last thing I'll say to kind of like close that circle up is that he used the word integral instead of the word holistic because it's very tempting to use the word holistic anatomy.
Mm,
And that is what it is, basically. But the reason he chose to use the word integral is because he felt that the word holistic is very overused.
yeah.
And so he just wanted to use just a different word to so that people don't get caught up in this kind of like buzzword that's very popular and right.
Yeah,
And integral is a beautiful word in itself, I think. So
I'm glad you
so
said
yeah,
that.
that's kind of the idea between of what is integral anatomy.
Yeah. Yeah. Holistic is a buzzword.
It is.
It totally is, right?
And it's great. I mean, it's a great word. I use it, you know, in my descriptors and whenever I'm talking and whenever because people know kind of like, oh, it's the sense of the whole, right? So it's good. But yeah, the official term he's chosen integral anatomy, and I think it's a beautiful word.
Mm. Um, I just want to commend you for all of the work you've done alongside Gil. For the listeners listening in, you know, Madhav's been at Gil's side for the last 7 years,
Uh, 5 years,
five
yeah.
years.
I took my
But
first course with him 7 years ago, but
yeah,
5 years ago is kind of like when
like emerged
really
into the lab.
I really moved in about 5 years ago. Yeah.
And how many like what's your dissection count at this point?
As far as classes, I'm not sure. I have that number somewhere, but um, the number that I do know off the top of my head is I'm approaching body number 50, I
Yeah,
think.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's I'm it might I might even already have crossed into the 50 number, which is really quite cool. For a little bit of perspective, Leonardo da Vinci dissected about 32 cadavers in his whole career.
Wow.
Yeah. And those were all in um, short windows. And
Mhm.
I'm doing all of these in much longer windows. You know,
Right.
some of them I did 6 months.
Mhm.
Da Vinci would never have imagined that it would even be possible to do 6 months because the preservation techniques weren't as good back then.
Right.
So we're really able to go much more slowly and much more carefully. And, you know, but also like, even though I'm like, oh, this is so cool, I got almost double of Da Vinci, but Gil is at something like 700.
Wow.
And and then check this out. I remember I love this story. Gil was telling me that he was at a university teaching a course one time, and he saw this kind of super funky anatomical variant. And there was a professor who was part of that lab at that university. And Gil goes over to him. And, hey, have you ever seen that? You know, like what is this thing? And he goes, oh, that's the such and such variant. It's 1 in 3,000. Haven't you ever seen one before? Gil Gil was like, yeah, yeah. That was the first one. It was, yeah. So
Well,
it's all
that
very relative, you know, like I'm all
right.
proud of my 50, but
Right.
you know, it's 1 in 3,000 and you haven't seen one yet, you know? It's like, oh God.
Um,
It's all
that
very
brings up
relative.
an interesting topic that I want to milk out a little bit. Like variations, like um, within that, you know, real tangible experience of you know, working with, you know, the body and bio individuality, you guys come across a good bit of variations that would stray from the normal
Every time,
every time,
every time,
right?
every time. Yeah, I've never looked at a body and been like, nothing about this surprised me. I've never had that reaction. There's always
Wow.
something, always. There's at least one or two things. And I'm like, what? I've never seen that before,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, always.
I didn't
Yeah,
know.
every
I didn't know for everybody. I just thought it was like
everyone.
somewhat common, but
Sometimes the variants are very subtle, but
Mhm.
sometimes the variants are very obvious and very like, whoa.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, the one that is most recent in my memory, and I know I've told you about this one, but for everyone watching and listening,
yeah.
there was just it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago or something, and one of the participants found an ulnar nerve going into the triceps muscle. Now you go look in your innervation tables, and all of the innervation tables everywhere, no matter what, always they say the radial nerve innervates the triceps. And that's the only thing I've ever seen is the radial nerve innervating the triceps. But here we had not one, not two, not three, we had four branches of the ulnar nerve going into the triceps muscle on her left arm.
Mhm.
And on her right arm, it was the radial nerve going into the triceps muscle as predicted,
How about
but
that?
on her left arm, it was the ulnar nerve innervating the triceps muscle. I was like, what the?
Yeah. You said it was
What?
very very clear. Like it was
Oh, it
very
was the
clear.
most obvious thing in the whole world. The image is going to be on the slideshow, so I'm looking forward to you seeing that to seeing that image. It's the most obvious thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's while we're here, let's talk about your baby, your integral anatomy slideshow that you've already done your first presentation of, I
this
believe.
Saturday will be the
Oh, it's
first
coming
one.
up. It's coming
Yeah,
up. So tell us about the project. You know, I went out there last February with you and we were taking pictures and I'm
yeah.
sure there's been so much more integration and things coming together as you've been putting this presentation together. Tell us about what you hope to accomplish with it and just kind of what it means to you.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a little bit of context on this one. This might be kind of a long answer. So I've been helping Gil do photography projects for since 5 years now, and I've immediately I understood that there's so much that goes into this process, and I could never I knew that I was not ready to even think about doing anything like this on my own. I was literally just really like a grasshopper mode. And I still am like a grasshopper mode. Gil is sensei and I'm grasshopper still. But 5 years after doing all of this photography work, I finally felt like, okay, I'm ready to do a small one
Yeah.
so that I can have something. And the reason I really decided to cross that threshold into making this happen is that when marketing for my in-person dissection courses, I realized going to chiropractic schools and saying, "Hey, everybody, I have this experience for you. If you come to Colorado Springs, I have this experience for you that's going to blow your mind. It's going to change everything for you. Trust me."
That's the 6-day dissection lab for chiropractors.
Yes, exactly. And really, that's all I had to say is that I have this thing that's really, really good. Trust me on it. And a lot of them don't even know me. So how are they going to say, okay, I'm going to throw down all this money. I'm going to make these travel arrangements. I'm going to make the Airbnb and the rental car. And I'm going to sacrifice a third of my summer break and off of someone that I just met, you
Mm.
know? And I was like, it's a miracle that I even filled out one table worth of participants with such a message. But by some miracle I did. But I realized like, no, I have to offer them something to so that they can get a taste of what it is that I'm saying that they can see, what
Mm.
a little taste of the experience. So I was like, okay, cool. This is what I got to do. I got to do this photo project, put together a slideshow. It's not just photos, by the way. It's also video.
Mm.
There's many videos sprinkled into the slideshow, and so that number one, if people do have the capability to come and take this course and make this big time investment, this will help them to sort of be like, okay, you know, that looks good. I do want to do something like this. I do want to have this experience. And for the people who can't afford it, because it is a big investment, Well, then they can afford $100 day or a $200 weekend. That is much more, it's much
Accessible.
closer. It's
Yeah.
much, thank you. It's much more accessible. And so they can still come away with something that is helpful. And I still think that this slideshow can be a big game changer just all by itself. I think it can be a huge game changer.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the idea is it's number one, it's a marketing tool. And number two, it's an experience on itself that I really think is a very valuable game changer, and yeah, so something like that. That's kind of the idea. So in
Mhm.
the slideshow, what I'm doing is I'm basically taking people through more or less what it would be like to do a workshop with me,
Mhm.
except for I'm doing most of the dissection on this. I did have a lot of help from our team. And Anne and Allie did a lot of dissection. They did just as much dissection as I did, actually. And a lot of their work is featured in the slideshow.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of the only difference is that here, people who have done it a lot are doing the work. Whenever participants come, the participants will be doing the work.
Mhm.
That's kind of really the only difference. But I think it's nice to have the work done by practiced hands because the work comes out pretty good. We're not bad dissectors. So
Right. Right. It's nice uh to have it like it clear and concisely as possible delineated so that looking at the forest isn't too much to, take
yeah,
in. Like I think that was one thing I noticed when I was taking pictures with you is like, oh wow, there's really a science to how we present this and show this so that it can be more digestible by the
yes,
eyes, sort of thing.
yes,
There's a lot
yes,
that goes into it that people don't know about taking pictures of the anatomy.
yes, and that's really something that I learned a lot about doing this with Gil is his obsession with aesthetic and his
Mhm.
obsession with how things are present, the aesthetic of presentation. He's a maniac in the best of ways when it comes to that. And that's one of the biggest things that I learned from him is like what to not include in the shot, what to include in the
Right.
shot, and how much preparation does it take before you're ready to take that picture. You don't want to do the work half. You got to complete it all the way through before you take that picture and
Right.
make sure the table's nice and tidy and all these kinds of things, because otherwise you take a picture of some half done thing and you're like, I don't even know what I'm really looking at. So yeah, there is a lot that goes into this
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
people are just going to see this and be like, oh, it's like magic poof, like an anatomage table, like you click it and remove skin.
Right.
It's like,
Not
no,
like that.
it's not like that in the real body.
And
So,
I think something that is really valuable to be gaining alongside of the slideshow is that, when people go to Gil's talks or come into your talks, you're in the field of a practitioner that has had his or her hands on many bodies and has had that experiential wisdom, and there's an energy of that, and like how you talk about the pictures and how you talk about the experience. um there is some like secondhand translation of that expression of the different tissues and their energies, the different frequencies that are within the tissues, the quality of the relationships. I think that is probably one of the things that I'm always just so interested to hear you and Gil talk about is like how deep that conversation goes and how many fun, cool analogies there are to describe how different parts of the body are related and talking to each other.
yeah, yeah, well said. Yeah, well
I
said.
want to hear about how your experience in the lab has translated to your chiropractic art and practice.
Yes, yes. Yeah. It's hard to separate it at this point because it's been such a part of my life for almost the whole time that I've been graduated. I took my first course even while I was still in school. So it's so it's so like this that I don't know where the separation is at this point. But what I can say is that when you interact with a body that's alive and you interact with a human being, um, and you have a sense of what's in there and what the tissues are like inside texturally,
Mm.
as opposed to theoretically because you read about it or because you looked at a cartoon picture. People, cartoon picture? What are you talking about, cartoon picture? Well, look in your atlas. They're all drawings
The drawings.
with literally colored pencils.
Mhm.
It's a cartoon,
Right.
So, and they're very helpful cartoons. They're very
Mhm.
helpful maps. But I think that's a great starting point. But for that to be the ending point, no. For me, I need more than a cartoon. So when you get a sense of it texturally in the 3D, in the organic version of it, then the you just have a different sense. You just have a different sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's through and through. It just changes everything about how you work. Another thing that comes to mind is that by seeing how certain tissues are in there, I different ideas come to mind of different moves.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden I'm doing some kind of like, let's say like I'm doing like a little distraction move, which is a very common move. You put a hand on the sacrum, you put a hand on the upper thoracics or the skull, and a little distraction move. But then I think, oh, but what about how these blood vessels, forget about the discs. I mean, the discs are, but there's more than just the discs, like what
Right.
about the blood vessel? And you can kind of like put a little, and then it just gives me a different idea of how it is that I can sort of like finesse it, because I don't know, different ideas come to mind, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think that's a good word to describe it is finesse. And I'll just open up and talk a little bit about like what this work means to me. Um, I feel like the field of chiropractic gets a little too focused on the spine and the bones. The spines and the bones are really important. The spinal cord is really important. But if that's where the conversation ends, for me, just like for you, the cartoons, for me, if it ends there, it's not enough. If
Yes.
if we truly are nervous system specific chiropractors, body workers, practitioners, whoever we be, the nervous system is the intermediate connector for all of the tissues, right? It's how all of the tissue types send the information and talk to each other with the whole system and how it's organized. So why wouldn't we be focused on those little blood vessels and the superficial fascia and not only, the ligaments crossing, the knee, but also the blood vessels and the lymphatics and that rich golden fatty tissue inside of the knee as well. It's like all of those different tissue types have a different flavor and they're all related to the nervous system. And if we're just running our hand through and only feeling the bones or the discs or the joints, there's a lot of stuff in between that is wanting to be seen. And if it is seen, a lot of times that joint or that bone releases a lot easier, or that muscle releases a lot easier because there's an energetic component to it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
an opening process that occurs, I think, uh, when there's a deep appreciation of the whole.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
something that I really like to show is like how little force we need to facilitate an adjustment.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Imagine going to a forest and only and touching the same tree over and over. It's like, but there's all these other trees there.
Right. I like this forest analogy. It's fun.
Yeah, there's so much going on in a forest. Why are you just going to look at one tree over and over? Like there's all this other stuff is going on. So I think seeing it, acknowledging it, understanding that it's there, whether you think it's there or not, whether you focus on it or not, it is there.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah,
Um, I would love to know some takeaways, if you can, like three key concepts or takeaways that you've learned in your integral anatomy dissection experience. What are like some like main takeaway points that you would like people to have
Yeah.
from this conversation?
Yeah. Some of the things we've already kind of touched on, I think, but that's my answer, so I'll repeat them.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind is relationship quality. Relationship quality has been a huge takeaway from my lab experience. There's so many different tissue textures, and all of those tissue textures are related to each other. How are they related to each other? Understanding that has changed everything about how I touch people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because and also doing it over and over, you get a sense of how from person to person, those same tissue textures are related in a slightly different way because everyone's different, you
Yeah.
know?
And I,
Like,
I've noticed when you adjusted me last time, there was such because it had been a few years since you had worked with me, there was such a wide range of the depth of the touch that I
mm,
experienced from you. It was like very, very like light, and then like we were talking and nerding out about doing like the micro adjustments and like this little like like kind of
love
getting in a little
those.
deeper. And then, you adjusted me osseously and it was strong and it felt good, right?
Mm, mm.
Um, and I just really appreciated that range.
Yep. Yep. I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad you appreciated. That's definitely how I want to work. Yeah, a wide range specific to the individual.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel like adjustments, the music analogy is just, for me, I really think a lot about adjustments as like a piece of music, like a piece of art. You don't start out with uh with the like banging chorus. You want like an intro.
Right.
You want like an intro into the song, to sort of like lead you into it and warm you up into it, and
Mhm.
and then you want to have your like, wow,
And
yeah,
like
I'm dancing,
building.
but then you want to be able to like sit down and like close your eyes and, oh yeah, oh, and then there's like a little like intermission or something, and then you want to have a nice outro, and right, like occiput holds are great outros kind of thing. And so something like this, yeah, a wide range. That's cool that you feel that way, because that's exactly how I want to transmit it.
I love that song analogy. Have you used that before?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time. Yeah,
That's really cool. I really love that. That
yeah,
really resonates with me.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Um, what else? What else?
yeah,
Any other last thoughts you have about
yeah. Well, you said
the
three, right?
workshop we're
And
doing, the
so,
seminar?
uh, uh, oh well, uh, phew. Well, let me finish this question. So, because you said, what are three takeaways? I've only
Yeah,
got
yeah, we only
one
did one.
actually.
You're right.
Yeah. So, the another one that also we've already talked about is variation. That's also been a huge takeaway in the lab, is getting a real sense of how different people are, from person to person, how different it can be. Because if you learn from the same image, if you learn from the same cartoon, it's so easy to conclude that this is what anatomy is. And I remember we had one professor in chiropractic school, who shall remain unnamed. I don't think he's there anymore. But I remember we had one anatomy professor in there, and he spent like a third of his lectures being frustrated at the anatomage tables that, no, they made a mistake here. This blood vessel is supposed to go underneath instead of on top, or this particular thing is supposed to be this other way, and it's not.
Mm,
And at the time, all of us students were like so impressed, like, oh, this guy knows so much. He's like an encyclopedia. He's like got it all figured out.
Right.
And now I look at that and I'm like,
So rigid.
it's too rigid. Like, no, like the variation is legit. Maybe in that person, it does go underneath instead of on top. You
Mhm.
know, like why not? One example that comes to mind is a scaling and brachial plexus variation. You know, the brachial plexus is supposed to pass through between the anterior and the middle scalene,
Mhm.
but in one body that we worked on recently, the anterior scalene was split in half, and part of the brachial plexus was going through the middle of the anterior scalene, and the
Mhm.
rest of the brachial plexus was going in between the anterior and the middle, like the textbooks say.
Mhm.
So, what would that professor have to say about that? Oh, it's a mistake. The body made a mistake. It's like, body doesn't make a mistake. It's a variation, and it's
Variation.
legit, and that's how it is.
Mm.
You know how it is. Variation is the normalcy, actually. You
Mm.
know, no one is the same. You look at our faces, how different our faces are. You
Mm.
think the inside is going to be the same, though? Like, no, the inside is just as unique as the outside.
Mm.
So, so yeah, that's another huge one that I've taken away, and an appreciation for how, like, for how the tissue glide differences can be. You know, you say, oh, well, there's in chiropractic school, I remember learning, oh, the tissue glide, you can have more or less because it's more watery or less watery. And that's really as far as we could take it. But sure, there is water involved, yes. But now I can articulate it so clearly why it is that tissue glides are so different because I really understand that anatomy well now. And yeah, it's super cool to feel different tissue glides from person to person. And I feel like I can see what's going on in there and what makes that difference. And understanding what that difference is will change how you touch and will change how you think about it.
Mm.
So, yeah, something like that.
All right. So concept number three.
Okay, concept number three. I think concept number three is getting a sense in my understanding of what I didn't either know was there or what I didn't appreciate that was there, or maybe something that I kind of like, yeah, like I know it's there, but I never think about it. Well, whenever you work on on all of those things, then you kind of can't forget it. You kind of can't forget that all these things that you didn't even either you didn't know it was there or whatever, or you forgot it was there, or you don't care that it's there. Well, now you don't have that option anymore.
Right.
You're like, there's this big forest over there, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And yep, yep. I think we do get quite a bit of that in the regional education, but you definitely get more of it in the integral education of getting a sense of things that that are not just the spine, for example. You know,
Right. Right. A
yeah,
deeper appreciation
yeah,
to
like different fascial systems. Organs, how organs interact, like abdominal organs in particular. I really didn't understand the abdominal viscera. Like we took our visceral anatomy course, sure, but I didn't really understand it until I got into the lab and how that impacts everything. So, yeah, there you go. That can be number three.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
would
Now
love to.
I got a question for you
Oh,
now.
okay. Yeah.
I got a question for you now. So I'm really excited to be doing this with you, to be doing these weekends with you. There's a few dates that we have an entire weekend as opposed to just a 1 day thing.
Mhm.
And for the entire weekends that we have planned, you are going to be leading the charge on Sunday.
Mhm.
Uh, and we're going to be doing our best. You're going to be doing your best to make it application based.
Right.
Taking what we learned in the Saturday and applying that into the adjusting art. And so, what do you got planned for us, Cam?
Oh, where do I even start? So, I think that I think that you and I both come from this world of biogeometric integration and MLS, Mastery Love Service. And we have found that, bridging those two approaches work really well. And there's more nuances that can be appreciated when you've been into the dissection lab and you've gotten deeper into the woods, so to speak, right? So, really, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of showing all the stuff I figured out adjusting people, right? So, um, it is going to be systemic for the sake of organization of like starting with like opening moves, right? How do we open up the nervous system? How do we begin that song, right? How do we have those light tissue contacts that are would be the application of like superficial fascia, for example, which we both know is highly innervated and highly vascular. Um, it's a very living organ part. So I think it's important to start the conversation there and to help the whole system feel more connected. And there's different areas where things tend to close down. So just having an appreciation and kind of a roadmap of, oh, hey, these are some areas that tend to get closed down that we can begin the conversation with. And then we're going to be going into pelvis and sacrum. We have a really fun way that you and I have talked about of talking about the sacrum as a shock absorber and having an appreciation for what's actually going on in the pelvis. And then one thing that I've learned in practice is how that pelvis tension translates up into the lumbars and just getting a really
Mm,
good roadmap and a little bit of orientation with some pressure tests to help get you on the right track so that you can feel so that you know you're in the right place to feel deeper into the tissue. So that's and I'm going to be doing that. I have this thing I call Cam's Neuro Quick Scan, and I'm going to be using that just to show you kind of what I do in practice and help give people an idea of like where to start. And once I tend to find once you're more confident that you're in the right area and that it's objectively being confirmed based on how the nervous system is talking to you, it gives you more permission to really,
mm,
feel into the tissue and to
mm,
have a deeper conversation because you're not second
mm,
guessing yourself along the way.
mm,
Um, Appreciation between the thoracic spine and the rib cage and the diaphragm, appreciation of the musculature in the shoulder girdle. um, I'm going to be taking some concepts of like resistant stretching or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation (PNF) stretching, and there's a active release way that I've kind of learned to do it that is I feel like it has an appreciation for the spectrum of how much input as opposed to just like digging into a muscle and like pushing it really hard. There's like a spectrum of how you're getting a muscle to activate and like the directionality of it, and then where you can hold into that superficial fascia, then the deep fascia, and then the muscle tissue itself. So kind of going through those layers with coaching the person moving the muscle into it. Um, we have our C2 star and our hyoid star that we're gonna talk about and show very beautiful images of. And those images in and of itself just give you so much permission to do all sorts of really fun stuff with the front of the neck, obviously the back of the neck. But I think the big thing has been
mm,
how it's integrated into my art, working on the front side of the neck.
mm,
And just that nuance of helping the jaw tension and the deep scaling tension to just nicely release energy and then at the very end we're going to be doing closing moves. So how I like to have like a closing ritual in my practice, I feel that uh, alongside of the appreciation of all of the relationships in the integral anatomy, there should be an appreciation for uh, the bioenergetics of what's happening as we're releasing energy through the tissue, and we want to make sure we're closing out that song with a really
mm,
nice resolution, with a really nice
mm,
rounding, so that we're not leaving any
Mm.
unintegrated energy, um, leaving people feeling ungrounded, basically. So there's a couple
Yep.
different ways that we can help ground the bioenergetics of the anatomy at the end of the adjustment, and it also acts as like a staple and a ritual for somebody's like emotional limbic brain to just know that that's the end of the adjustment, and they just get in a really good rhythm as they're with you as longtime clients.
Yes.
So that's kind of
Beautiful.
the spread.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say for that. I know you've been working hard on it, and I know it's going to come out great. So,
Mm.
yeah, I'm really stoked for all of this. Yeah, man.
Yeah, me
Well,
too.
thank you for this chat. Thank you for everything that you've done. You've been a huge support in this process for me since I started in school and through now. And I know when we were in school, both of us were like, we're going to do a seminar one day. And neither of us had any idea what that was going to be. And
Yeah.
now look at this. This is such a cool thing that we're doing, and we're doing it. And so I'm very, very excited to be doing it with you. My partner in, not my partner in crime. What's another way to put it? My partner in light. There
Partner
you
in
go.
connection.
Partner in connection. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, man.
I'm honored to be doing this with you. I just love everything that you're doing over there with Gil and Jim and the lab, and I just think it's so cool the way that you've found all of your passions and made it into your career and made it into your service, and it just feels really sacred and special to be a part of it with you. So thanks for
Yeah,
supporting
beautiful.
me. Thanks for including me. And I'm excited to see you in a couple months here and to do this thing first round with you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right, man. Love, love, love.
Love, love, love.